So, as you can see in this video, we're going to be discussing who the dinosaurs actually were. And before we get into any of that, I just want to say that I really enjoy the artwork. I appreciate the artist's ability to capture the activity of dinosaurs. And this comes at a time, this painting was done at a time when we were kind of transitioning from the lumbering giants that needed water to support their bodies because they were too huge, to what we're kind of used to when we watch Jurassic Park and we see a T-Rex chasing a Jeep. So super cool artwork. Let's get into it though. Before that, I think it's important to understand when dinosaurs were. And to put this into context, if we take a look at all of geologic history, so we got the Precambrian and the Phanerozoic, subdivided into different periods as well. The entirety of Earth's history is vast, 4.6 billion years of Earth history. We are in the Cenozoic era. Before the Cenozoic, we hit the Mesozoic, and that's kind of the age of dinosaurs, which you can then break down, as you can see, into the Triassic, Jurassic, and Cretaceous, which then can be further subdivided as well. So we're dealing with the time frame from about 251 million years ago to 65, 66 million years ago. So a good chunk of time. People sometimes just characterize the Mesozoic as the age of dinosaurs. But we need to be careful with that. Dinosaurs don't show up right away in the Triassic. Life in general is put into these categories, or I should say the categories are divided up based on changes in life. So there was a large mass extinction 251 million years ago. And then also another mass extinction 65 million years ago. So it's bounded by two big extinction events. So life kind of had to adjust after this mass extinction between the Paleozoic and the Mesozoic. And, because of that mass extinction, new and different life were able to kind of start up. And about 230 million years ago, we start to see dinosaurs. The very first potential piece of evidence for dinosaurs aren't bones themselves, they're actually trace fossils of their footprints. And then later on, we start to see some fossil bones in the geologic record. And then as we move from the Triassic into the Jurassic, we see this massive expansion and complete dominance of dinosaurs during the Jurassic, and that diversity increase continues into the Cretaceous. Some other things that were going on where our ancient ancestors start to show up during the Mesozoic. Birds, which are dinosaurs, kind of branch off. We didn't have any flowering plants until the Cretaceous, which is kind of bizarre to think about because that's what we're used to. And then, like I said, 65, 66 million years ago, we get that massive mass extinction. Not the biggest mass extinction in geologic history. That actually happened at the beginning of the Triassic, at the beginning of in between the Paleozoic and the Mesozoic, the Great Dying, which is a very interesting event in itself. Next up, we're talking about misconceptions or misunderstandings when it comes to dinosaurs. And unfortunately, one of the biggest misunderstandings comes from the word itself, dinosaur, meaning terrible lizard. And unfortunately, dinosaurs are not lizards. So, lizards as we classify them today are, things that we just think of like chameleons and Gila monsters and geckos and things like that. A subgroup of lizards are actually snakes, which are look very different than what we think of lizards. Dinosaurs look completely different. However, when people started to find and started to try to classify dinosaurs, the way that they put them together was more lizard-like than anything else. And we'll see that problem with using the term lizard continue with some other things that we're going to talk about. A lot of people clump in organisms that aren't dinosaurs because they went extinct. We'll talk more about that here in a second, but most of life is extinct. That's been around, it's extinct, and so we need to kind of get rid of that idea of anything that's extinct as dinosaur. Another misconception is the idea that dinosaurs are dinosaurs because they're a failure of life, of biology, of the tree of life. And going back to what I just said, most of life is a failure then, I guess, because most of life did go extinct. And then another misconception is that dinosaurs are anything that was large and old is a dinosaur. So we're going to take a look at some of those problems here. So lots of different organisms on the page here. Only one of them is a dinosaur. One of my favorite animals, prehistoric animals, is this guy. This guy is Dimetrodon. Just the huge sail on this thing, and the context of this thing, and the reason why I think it gets lumped in with dinosaurs is that as a kid growing up, you'd get all these toys of dinosaurs, and Dimetrodon usually was in the pack or the box or whatever. So you'd assume that it was a dinosaur. I mean, it has some dinosaur-like characteristics, I guess. I mean, in this case, it's green and has scales and walked on 4 legs, and I don't know. But Dimetrodon lived in the Permian, so before that huge mass extinction, in a very different world than dinosaurs lived in. And in an evolutionary sense, Dimetrodon are a little bit more closely related to people, mammals, than they are to dinosaurs. So Dimetrodon, not a dinosaur, lived before them, not closely related. We have the woolly mammoth, which is a mammal. This is that big, the old and big and dead thing. And people might think that they're dinosaurs, but woolly mammoths and mastodon lived in the Cenozoic, which happened after the mass extinction that took out the majority of the dinosaurs. And obviously it's a mammal, so not closely related to dinosaurs at all. Pterosaurs, and Pteranodon in particular, lived at the same time, so we're getting a little bit closer to dinosaurs. And in a evolutionary sense and relationship-wise, are pretty closely related to dinosaurs, but branched off before, and have some different characteristics that keep them separate from dinosaurs. And we'll talk about some of those characteristics that all dinosaurs share here in just a second. And then up here we have Microraptor, which is a dinosaur. Doesn't necessarily look like what we think. Microraptor's micro. It's a small thing, so it's not big. It has feathers, which vast majority of people don't associate with dinosaurs. But Microraptor has all of the characteristics that dinosaurs have, and they share together. So of the 4 different organisms here, the only one that is a dinosaur is Microraptor, which we don't necessarily think of as a dinosaur based on its characteristics. When it comes down to it, the definition of a dinosaur is an animal is a dinosaur if it falls into a certain place on the tree of life. In this case, that group of organisms includes Triceratops, so everything from Triceratops to the living sparrow, and all descendants of their common ancestor. And to me, these definitions of what something is or isn't can be very confusing. So I'm going to show you what that means. All right. So here is Triceratops on the tree of life, on a phylogenetic tree or a cladogram, and then on the other side we have birds. Okay, including the sparrow. So what we do is we take a look at everything that we can travel back down this line to one of these nodes is considered in that group. Okay, so ceratopsians, pachycephalosaurs, ornithopods, stegosaurs, sauropods, and theropods. If we travel all the way back to that node, so the most common ancestor is that group, is the group of dinosaurs. Okay, I know it's vague and kind of confusing, but pterosaurs fall outside of that. Crocodiles fall outside of that. Okay, they don't share a common ancestor, so that's why we can't call them dinosaurs. So what are some of those shared characteristics? Well, they deal a lot with something we'll talk about in a second. So if we take a look, they all share at least a common ancestor that had an extension out here on the humerus for muscle attachment. In their hips, they had an open space here for the femur to get into, which helped them with locomotion. They had a fibula that didn't touch the astragalus overly much. When it comes to their cervical or neck vertebrae, they have these little extensions out here. The point of those is to allow for more neck muscle attachment, so to have stronger necks. And then when it comes to their femur, they've got this asymmetrical extension to kind of help with, again, muscle attachment. So as you can see, the vast majority of these things deal with locomotion. Okay, and when it comes down to it, the advantages of some of these shared characteristics is to allow dinosaurs to be more efficient in their locomotion. When you take a look at any monitor lizard like a Komodo dragon or a gecko or a chameleon or anything like that, their legs are and arms are out wide, so they're always doing like a push-up. And not only that, their ankles and wrists are inhibiting their locomotion. As you can see in the diagram here, dinosaurs have very vertical attachment with their joints, like you and I do. So it's going to allow these guys to swing their legs in a more efficient way, so they're not wasting a whole lot of energy and they're faster. Okay, so really brief intro to who dinosaurs are, where they started. We'll dive more into this as we get into the course.